do want to talk to you, Philippe, before we go about this breaking story this morning where two Norwegian television journalists have been arrested in Qatar. It feels a little bit like the world is beginning to wake up and put proper focus on the fact that the World Cup is in Qatar, and there are many stories that need to be covered in depth every time we speak about the World Cup in Qatar. In a weird way, stuff like this is going to help, because you can't ignore the arrest of television journalists who are just reporting on a story in Qatar.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. The two journalists from the Norwegian network NRK. And at the same time, obviously, there's also the situation of one of the former comms people from the Supreme Committee, from the Qatari Supreme Committee, Abdullah Ibhais, who was arrested and who is charged with attempted bribery and could risk 5 years in prison, is currently on a hunger strike. And this is, and you add to that the report that was published by Amnesty International just a few days ago, which is a damning report really about the rights of migrant workers, particularly in Qatar. You add to that the fact that you now have as well documentaries being released. I mean, there is one on Discovery, on the Discovery Channel. I know there are two others which are going to be released very soon, which are all about the awarding of the 2022 World Cup to Qatar by FIFA, and which obviously deal with all the allegations of bribery, corruption, and so forth, which have been in the public domain for a while. And this, as we are just 1 year away, and in a way, you know, in Qatar, there were quite a few people who are not too happy with the country bidding for the World Cup, because they said it will attract too much attention on us. And in fact, what is happening is, yes, there is an awful lot of focus. Some of it is on what is going to happen on the pitch. Like recently, Mr. Gianni Infantino, the chairman of FIFA, was in Doha to see what had been done with the stadiums and so forth, where he was joined by Mr. Bolsonaro, strongman of Brazil, and where there were a few photo ops, and that was all positive story and so forth. But the negative stuff is only I mean, is really bad. And it's, when I mean really bad, it's bad in itself, and it's also bad for the organizers, because the focus, you have to say as well, and I should add that Norway was really that close, very, very, very close, from boycotting the World Cup. There was a large movement, grassroots movement, and the Norway Federation is actually run as a democracy up to a point. And the majority of people wanted to bail out, and they said, even if you qualify, don't want to go. And it was only in June, 20th of June, I think, that the Norwegian Federation twisted a few arms, actually quite a lot of arms, and managed to get that motion off the table. No doubt it will come back after what happened. Absolutely no doubt about that. Then you've got as well, the Danish players as well are starting to be very vocal about that. Then you heard what Conor Cody had to say about it as well, which means that the England national team might also start to make comments about the situation in the country, in the host country. Now the qualifiers are over, people are going to talk even more about the situation there. So it is... these are going to be some, I think, very interesting months ahead to the lead up to the start of the World Cup in November 2022. And I'm afraid at the moment things aren't looking too good for the image of Qatar, who precisely got the World Cup, wanted the World Cup to build their reputation, to build their find themselves a bigger place on the world stage and so forth. Well, it is a bigger place on the world stage, but not necessarily for the good reasons.
How do you see that playing out over the next little while, Philippe? And maybe the easiest way to ask this question is through your own profession. I mean, it's obviously something that I'm sure you've been considering about how you cover this thing next year.
Yeah.
Where is that thought process at the moment between, I guess, yourself and your colleagues?
Well, I mean, I think, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, I myself write for a Norwegian publication which has been very vocal on this question, called Josimar, and I will carry on reporting on the situation there, and I'm quite involved in that as well. I mean, I in a way, I was one of the people who started the ball rolling when, released the Qatar dossier for France Football all those years ago, and I've carried on working on that. So I see very much my role as a journalist to report on what is happening in the country there in the wider sense. And I don't think it's possible to do anything other than that. And it's a situation that I think most of all of our colleagues are going to be in. I think the situation is going to be very different between the rights holders and the non-rights holders. That's the way I would put it. If you have bought the rights to the World Cup for a lot of money, be you a radio or especially a television station or a streaming platform, you're not going to want to talk to diss or to disrespect or to say bad things about a country which is hosting a tournament that you've just spent a fortune to broadcast. This is not a problem that you will have if you report for the Irish Times or the Daily Telegraph or France Football or any of those publications. So yes, there will be an awful lot. There will be even more coverage, and I think both are going to run in parallel, which is something that we've never seen before. Even though we could and should perhaps have seen before, I think we could have seen that for Russia 2018. We didn't see it. It's very different this time. Perhaps people are less wary of confronting what is happening in Qatar than they were of confronting what's happening in the land of Vladimir Putin. We're going to have the situation with China as well in the Olympic Games.
Yeah.
So I think honestly, it's perhaps what defines the job of a sports journalist these days. We have to cover these issues as much as anything that is happening on the field or in the dressing room or in the boardrooms. The same thing goes for our colleagues who cover Formula One when they saw Lewis Hamilton sport a rainbow-colored helmet at the qualifiers for the Qatar Grand Prix, which was quite a gesture. It's something as well that, for example, we're discussing as well for the colleagues of ours who are going. I'm not going personally to Qatar for the World Cup, especially if they are members of LGBTQ plus communities, to make sure that they're safe and how they can report on issues related to their communities there. You see, there's going to be a big conversation, I think.
I think
it's not going to be an easy one.
No,
that's for sure.
We'll have to keep having it because,
yes,
in a weird way, the Qatari authorities are making it much easier to have those conversations by arresting journalists and making everybody aware exactly of what's happening, and so it becomes this kind of inevitability that the
absolutely.
Story, yeah.
And you know what? One of the biggest fears of people who work in the field of human rights is, when it comes to Qatar, is the fact that once the World Cup has been played, the focus will go elsewhere. And if we don't get things changed quickly, and getting things changed quickly, by the way, only means asking the Qataris to put into practice all the beautiful words they've been using since 2009.
Yeah.
That's because they've kept talking about abolishing this and abolishing that and allowing this and allowing that. And you look at the reality, and the reality as is put in the Amnesty International report, which again is online, was published just a few days ago. The reality doesn't match the great words, the fine words of the Supreme Committee.
It very rarely does when it comes to stuff like this. Philippe,
yes,
brilliantly put. Thanks a million for joining us this morning. Cheers.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.